I'm bringing up this guy to start off with because it kind of leads us back via New Zealand into the Charlie Kirk story. Whanganui Mayor regrets speaking at Charlie Kirk vigil after backlash. Whanganui Mayor Andrew Tripe says he regrets speaking at a candlelit vigil for American conservative Charlie Kirk following an outburst of criticism from the community. Tripe said he knew little about the assassinated activist's views. Yeah, good on you for putting your name on his vigil then, dude.
Mm-hmm.
When he spoke at Whanganui's remembering Charlie Kirk vigil, but wanted to condemn political violence and support free speech. You just got to be careful, you know. You don't put your name to anything unless you've got a bit of research.
Google it. It takes 2 minutes to Google who that person is. It's not like they were an unknown.
So when this all happened, when the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, and we've been very clear here about the words assassination, and the person was certainly had what you'd class left-leaning views, but he was non-affiliated with any political party. And look, if you want to see a brilliant piece on it, go to YouTube and look up Jon Stewart from The Daily Show this week. He's basically going, in days gone by, we wouldn't mention the name of the shooter, and he shows a whole bunch of stuff, you know, out of respect for the people who have been shot. And now it's like out of people's mouths before you can even do it. And of course, he has several clips of, for example, Ted Cruz going, and they're calling us fascists, and that's the reason that there's this. And then, of course, Jon Stewart plays 3 clips of Ted Cruz calling Democrats fascists. So that's all bullshit. And I actually, it's a little bit like this government wants to blame international pressures partially for the economy now. The thing is, I actually want to agree with them. That does have an impact on this economy. But because they wouldn't let the last government talk about international pressures from COVID as part of the reason, then I'm sorry, you just don't get credit. It does feel a bit the same with this. Because after the Charlie Kirk assassination, the right wing, in America in particular, but certainly flow through the world, with one voice, the left are doing this. Why is the left committing this violence? Why is the left doing this? Even though all the research anywhere, any reputable place says 75% of political violence in America comes from the right. This is the narrative they sowed. So it does feel appropriate to kind of go, well, if that's the narrative you're sowing, then, and we know the stats for the last 20 years are 3/4 of the political violence has come from the right, then we're probably okay and pretty safe to put out a tweet quite soon after the Charlie Kirk shooting that says, out of interest, what happens to the current conversation around Charlie Kirk and shooters when the next 3 examples, because that would be 3 out of 4, that would be 75% of political violence in the US are committed by people on the right. Where does the conversation go now? And you notice, Paul, this tweet, this doesn't have much interactions.
No,
isn't it weird? Isn't it strange that this one hasn't set off Twitter like for example, my one at the top that's currently pinned around where the violence is. That's had a lot more engagement for some reason. So there was this horrific shooting in the weekend of a Mormon church. And it's really weird, but after Charlie Kirk, there's been all this conversation by those on the right talking about shooters and shooting and guns and the left, and they're really quiet about this one. And in fact, they're doing things like saying, Carolyn Levy and the White House have been saying things like, oh, we just have to wait. We have to see what's happening. And, we don't want to rush into things. Whereas Kash fucking Patel, within an hour of Charlie Kirk's assassination, was tweeting out who had done the crime when there was no evidence for it. But now we should really take our time. Now, the thing is, Paul, I agree with that. But it is strange that they have changed their perspective on this shooter. When you can argue, yes, Charlie Kirk was a much bigger name, but this person killed many more people. So this is a much more serious crime. And of course, what came out quite quickly after that was the affiliations with the shooter and Trump. Now, I'll say it again. I don't actually think political affiliations mean anything. But when the right is saying, even though all the evidence is contrary to this, when they are saying that the left is let's quote Elon Musk, the left is the party of murder, the left is the party of violence, people like Stephen Crowder and others, the left are hunting us, then it's appropriate to go, hang on, let's look at the stats. The very next significant shooting after this, this is his front yard, I think, off Google Street Views. This is a Trump sign attached to his fence. There is also conversations where, what is the thing that is said? There's a T-shirt that he's wearing out there that some people have said is not true, it's fake, which is fine. Happy to accept it. Here's his truck. Now, whilst the truck doesn't say, "Oh, g'day, got me some Trump," two Americans' flags hanging out the back, could make for some a case to be set. And then I don't often do this, Paul. I'd be interested to know if you do this in your research, but I use Google AI. So I did a search, right? And then I clicked on Google. Now you've got this AI mode. And this is what it said about Thomas Jacob Sanford, who's the shooter. He is the shooter too. There's no, because he's dead. News reports citing public records indicate that Thomas Jacob Sanford was not a registered member of any political party. Okay. But he had been linked to support for Donald Trump through social media and campaign sign displays at his home. Sanford was identified as the suspect in a September 2025 shooting and a fire. Of course, he set the place on fire as well. At the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, etc. Campaign sign, a Google Street View image from June 2025 shows a Trump Vance sign on the fence. Social media post. In 2019 Facebook photo, Sanford seen wearing a T-shirt with the slogan "Trump 2020, make liberals cry." Some people are questioning that. So let's just put that one to the side, right? Fair enough. Petitions. This is interesting. A political consultant reported that Sanford signed petitions for conservative causes, including efforts to repeal the Michigan governor's pandemic emergency powers and to restrict abortions. Red flags? Red flags, Paul? Red flags?
A few, yeah.
A few. Records show Sanford did not vote in any presidential primary elections, which would have revealed his party affiliation in Michigan. This suggests he was not strongly a committed partisan. So, like the guy who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk, not necessarily affiliated with a party, but certainly seems like there are some right-wing views there. And I think it's important for us, and in New Zealand, maybe you don't get it, but I think probably me and Paul do online and stuff, these sorts of accusations, that we at least have the information to, if we want to, push back on these narratives. But that's the thing I wanted to say tonight, Paul, and I've been talking for 7 minutes. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
To be fair, I haven't had a chance to look too much into that exact shooting. They do kind of blur a little bit when you're looking at news about shootings in the States en masse. And that is horrible and absolutely tragic. And doesn't seem to matter who's in power when they happen. The response is usually, thoughts and prayers. That's going to save everything. And, we'll deal with mental health, but not fund it. And we should wait and see. And they're not inappropriate responses in the short term, but when you do it over and over for a very, very long time, they lose any sense of power. But they've stopped doing that. This thing with Charlie Kirk has very much stopped that. The Charlie Kirk thing has turned into we're going to blame you. And just to echo what you're saying, this is a news story from what's just happened over the weekend. 9 people dead, scores injured over the weekend of mass US shootings, 6 separate mass shootings, bringing the total tally to, ready for this, 324 mass shootings this year. Underscoring, continuing. Yeah, it's more than one a day. So, we know there was one on the same day as Charlie Kirk, but we know nothing about that person, and they didn't get their flagpoles. Neither did the Democratic representative from the month before. So I saw a graph the other day actually that started talking about, it was, one of these things like I see NBA stuff. It's like, who's the highest point scorer from the NBA since it started? And you have these lines that move and then they move above each other. And then finally Michael Jordan takes over and then LeBron takes over and does that kind of thing. I saw one, and I don't know, I'm not citing this as evidence. I need to check it first. But basically the UK had the most mass shootings according to this graph up until like the 1970s, early 1970s. And then the US took over per year. Then the US took over. And then when it actually wasn't that, it was different, but not that big. And then it got to about 2000, which is ironically when the assault weapon ban was lifted, and it went, and it just took off. Now, I'm not putting that out there as absolute evidence, but I would not be surprised. My bullshit nerve does not go off with that one, put it that way. Yeah, well, the only thing that would actually surprise me about that is the UK. I don't know much about the UK's mass shootings to be honest. It's not something that I've heard much of, because it gets so overshadowed by what happens in the US every day.
Yep, I'll try and find it. I'll put it on the thing. But anyway, it's just look, on lots of levels. I know people are going to go, well, if you don't if you think that it's okay not to pigeonhole people like this, why are we talking about it? And the reason is, people need to understand what's also coming at us and have the information at hand for rebuttal as well, if you're going to get into this. And also, truth matters. And the truth is, the narrative being sold after Charlie Kirk is wrong. And if we're basing things off a wrong foundation and not the truth, we're not going to find the answers to these problems. We're just not. Another point that John Stewart made was, every country in the world has these conversations. I mean, we have these conversations in New Zealand. I am sick and tired of saying the left call the right fascists all the time. What do you think's going to happen? Yeah, the right call the left pedos all the time. What do you fucking think that's going to do to an unhinged person if they think someone's an actual pedophile? But the thing is, these horrible conversations happen in every country, but there's only one country that sees this kind of violence, and it's the US. And that's one of the points he was making.